Hey, you, welcome back to the channel. And guys, today we're going to talk the return of Legion. We will cover episodes 1 and 2, or what's referred to as chapter 9 and chapter 10. But I just briefly want to touch on what we got at the end of season 1, as many questions were left lingering. Seemingly at the victorious end of David being separated from the parasite, aka the Shadow King, aka Amal Farouk, David was taken away by some mysterious orb that kind of scanned him, and he disappeared. Now, as we fast forward through these episodes, we're understanding now that this is Sid recovering David, or sending him to the future and trying to communicate a message to him of dire consequences that have occurred in the future with him killing the Shadow King. And basically that he needs to help the Shadow King in order to recover his body so that they together can fight this threat. Now, it's this show Legion is doing a great job of staying interesting yet staying very confusing. I was I was curious as to what season 2 was going to be about. I actually thought season 2 would spend more time outside of David's mind this time. I had said in my earlier reviews of Legion season 1 that if it stayed in David's head, I would love this show and keep watching it. And it did that, and it did an excellent job. But we're still confused now on what's happening, what's reality, what's happening within David's head. There are many seems suggestions going around in what we see in the scenes that make us think that this is still happening in David's head, and the chicken, the idea of the chicken with the goo. Real quick, the narrator of the chicken with the goo is Jon Hamm, who was rumored around the net to play Mr. Sinister. But I think he might be playing that in an upcoming X-Men movie or something. But he is narrating a lot of the stories we got to see with the implanting, of the chicken with the goo and the egg and the plant of these ideas. But so it's hard to kind of figure out what's real and what isn't. But there are these clues. We also, in the beginning of episode 2 of chapter 10, we got what appeared to be Shadow King using Oliver Bird, and he's looking through this crystal ball, and it kind of encapsulates the entire area he's in. Looks like it's encapsulating the entire world, or it's putting it inside within this crystal ball. And that kind of just, for some reason, reminded me of the idea of Russian dolls, right? The idea of dolls within dolls within dolls. And I kind of compare that to these images, these in the mind of worlds within worlds, realities within realities within realities, dreams within dreams within dreams, etc. Right? But what was so interesting about these last couple of episodes has been not only this communication from the future to help David, or to get David to help Shadow King to recover his body and so that they would be able to defeat this impending doom that's going to happen in their future. But that the Shadow King, this is the first time that they're really in direct communication and in agreement. So, of course, in the first episode of the season, we got to see them kind of doing this dance off, which was a type of manifestation of the mental battle that is ensuing between the two, right? And then we get a similar thing in chapter 10, where there's this kind of wrestling match between him and the Shadow King. And I loved how the character of Shadow King here, how they got him portrayed. One of his first opening shots, he's sitting here in his chair, and it appears he's in Paris. We can see the landscape of the Eiffel Tower behind him. But this character obviously is a very sophisticated character. Much later on in Amal Farouk's life, and or throughout the course of his life, as he's they got this Buddhist monk thing walking around. I'm wondering, is that really his physical body, and that this is another manifestation of a person he's taken over, or and that he's much older than they think he is. They say he's 200 years old, but perhaps he's much older, and that monk is his body, his actual body that they're trying to find, as we got to see within the episodes, right? But I like this because this kind of reminds me of the vampire shows where you see the vampire going through history, and he's always very sophisticated because he's seen everything throughout the course of human affairs and events, that he already knows how human beings think, the psychological makeup, and he's had many centuries to study them. And in this case, it's kind of reminiscent of that because, obviously, the Shadow King is being able to live much longer as this parasite and attached to these hosts, or just existing in his pure energy form, or his consciousness form. He's been able to observe a lot and go on. And so, he does have this conversation with David, and you get an idea of why he does the things he does, or why he thinks he can, because he has this God complex, right? He's basically like an omega level mutant, right? Him and David, both these are super powerful mutants. And the way that they were, as in Shadow King's case, the way he's starting to look at humanity is he just sees it basically as ants. He sees themselves as gods, able to shape and create form, reality, and worlds within minds, make people do whatever they wish, and human beings obviously as people who are much lower life form in their mind view, or his mind view. And so the way they set all this up and put this all together, I found just so interesting, so well done. But what the most disturbing message of both episodes obviously is what's going on in the future. Why is Sydney the way she is? She has a missing arm. She's very distant from David, and very surprised to see him in human form, which means that David has either transcended beyond a physical form. Maybe he's like Amal Farouk now. Maybe he's like the Shadow King, where he doesn't even necessarily require a body. And that's why she's, seeing him that way. Or maybe, is it that David has become someone else? Maybe David could himself be the threat, and Shadow King may be needed as a counterweight, right? Or maybe they're together as a team will be able to have the ability, combined power, to stop this threat that's obviously at that point in the timeline, or the point in that future, a great deal more deadly than Shadow King or David was. So this is all very interesting to see, and I love the fact that they were able to go with this next story. I'm not really sure where it comes from. It's just an original story. I'm not sure if it's related to the comic books or not, but the appearances of Amal Farouk, Shadow King, certain, this king's like kind of a mixture of the monk and this more sophisticated form of the Shadow King. But obviously that all comes from the comic books, and I'm not sure where this storyline is coming from, but I like it, guys. I really do. And I'm glad that they're able to keep holding my attention and playing all these mental games. Now, do I want some type of to be able to find my bearings for coherency's sake within this show? Yes, I would. In fact, if it were me maybe doing the writing, I think I would probably like to see some of this stuff cleared up. And when they do the mental projections, there do be a type of clearance there or clarification rather there at the end of each mental projection. I mean, it's just fine to go through the episodes and keep us in the dark about it, but I'm just hoping, guys, Legion doesn't turn out to be one of these Lost type shows where we get to the end of the entire conclusion of it and then they just go, well, it was all David, he manifested all this stuff, none of this was real, and he created all of these things. Interesting enough, the character of Lenny in the show, whereas we were trying to figure out if she were real or she was just a type of a projection from the Shadow King or outside of David's mind, it does appear that Lenny was real and now is trying to escape from the Shadow King, but he has this very interesting line about, and if you got out, what would you do? It's almost like he's looking at Lenny as if she's basically very unimportant in the scheme of things, right? And that's the mindset I would imagine that a person of disability or a person like the Shadow King would have, to a certain degree, that he would probably see a lot of things that happen around him as unimportant, and that Lenny getting back to her life of whatever it was in the scheme of things is very minuscule on his list of things. But, that was all very interesting. And of course, they're still trying to, a lot of it's about trying to separate him now from Oliver without Oliver being destroyed, much like what happened with David. If they could get him free from Oliver, that would be a good thing. Lots going on with Division 3. We got introduced to Admiral Fukuyama and the Vermilion, which are these very interesting androgynous android humanoid beings that basically are connected and they all work together as this machine. And we got all the cast back. We got Ptolemy back. We got Sid back. Sid's distant from David. Obviously with everything's happening. Melanie Bird seems to have been on this, in this greatly depressed form at the loss of Oliver, and is doing some drugs, which we don't know if it's real or not. We remember a similar type of drug effect from season 1 with David that wasn't real. So that will be all interesting to see. But anyway, guys, I'm going to leave it there for right now. Legion is definitely one of those shows that it's going to take a little time to digest and analyze. Guys, you like content like this, don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, take care.